What are the top 3 or 4 reasons why you can't convince somebody under 40 that would like to do it, but they can't? How often is it financial?
It's financial, both in terms of they don't necessarily have the money, like their job isn't necessarily stable, but also they probably can't quit their job, or they'd have a job that has
Right.
like conflict of interest problems.
Right.
Second big thing is, especially for millennials and true for Gen Z too, kids. If you have young kids, it's really hard,
Okay.
really, really hard. And
Yeah.
I have 2 kids under 2.5. I cannot imagine running for office right now. It feels
Look,
impossible.
one of the there's a young Republican member of Congress who just
Mhm.
retired out of Kansas. He's in his mid-30s, Jake
Yeah,
LaTurner, and this is why
yeah.
he did it. He's like, I got small kids. I'm tired of being the parent that's not at the
And I
games.
think
You know.
that's totally understandable. We've
Mhm.
definitely had a bunch of our folks work with Vote Mama, which is a great organization that helps people navigate using campaign funds for childcare, but we need more of that.
Mhm.
Um, there's some folks who are fearful about security, which I think especially if
Mhm.
you are a woman, person of color, like LGBTQ, there's even more hate threats coming your
Right.
way. I think the final big thing is this sense in particular, if you are not a homeowner, that you don't deserve a say in the future of the community. So this is one of our projects that we're launching later this year through our
Interesting.
C3, Run for Something Civics, which is we want to get more renters to run for office. One, because
Mhm.
the housing market is a nightmare. And if you are in your 20s or 30s, you think about it very differently than if you're someone who bought your house in the 80s and are now sitting on wealth.
Mhm.
But two, um, renters make up about 35% of the American people and about 7% of all elected officials nationwide. In the New York State legislature, there are more.
That's the type of diversity we don't
I
talk
mean,
about
it's an
enough.
economic.
Socioeconomic diversity. This is my beef with
Yeah,
newsrooms. People talk to me about diversity in newsrooms, and it's like I want geographic and socioeconomic. Give me somebody whose parents never went to
yeah.
college, who lived, understand that life versus it's just the socioeconomic diversity. And you're right, Congress does not have it right
Congress
now.
doesn't have it. The New York State legislature, New York, a state where I think at least in New York City, something like 65% of people are renters, maybe more, has
Mhm.
more landlords than it does tenants currently serving.
It's
California
amazing.
has, I think, 5
That's a
renters, and at one point had 0. Connecticut, 0. A number of these state legislators, 0. It is no wonder that we have, basically no federal law that helps renters outside of some of the stuff around, like, public housing, Section 8, but
Where's my man? The
like,
rent is too damn high party,
there's
right? Like, let's get that guy back.
mortgage tax deductions, first-time home buyer credits, all of that stuff for
Yeah.
homeowners that I'm 35 years old. I am paying thousands of dollars a month in childcare expenses. I am never going to be able to own a home, at least not in the next 10 years. It feels
Boy, I hope that's wrong.
Like,
Right. But I get
it
the
feels
sentiment. Yeah.
unimaginable, though, and I think when you
Yeah.
are in your 20s or 30s, that is a very common sense. It feels like when we talk about the American dream feels out of reach. How am I ever supposed to buy a home?
I, the how, no, it's funny. And I had not heard it more directly, the point you just made. And I really want to make sure this is a clip that gets
Mhm.
highlighted. I'm like saying it out loud because, we talk about the number one issue that voters ask about. I've done this survey of unofficially of members of Congress. I'm like, hey, when you go home, what's an issue that you get asked about that we don't cover
Mm,
enough? And it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or Democrat, they all say housing.
housing.
It's always housing. And it's like it was sort of like you just did it was one of those, well, duh, when you have no renters, no wonder nobody has it as a priority in front of their face. And that's a that's as good of an explanation as I've heard of why we have terrible housing policy in this country.
And I think there's a bunch of other factors here, including, like, much housing policy is made on the local level, which again, there's no renters there either. But and a
Mhm.
lot of the places where we really need to affect affordability, like, I think
Mhm.
about one of the many reasons why a lot of stuff swung right, like New York, New Jersey, everywhere swung right in the last election,
Mhm.
in part because of the affordability crisis,
Yep.
in part because how many Democrats in these blue states sent money to Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and have never engaged in a local election where they live,
Right.
and therefore have not actually, participated in the
This
process
gets back to where we
of
began.
affordability.
This gets back to where we began. GoPacs got started because they concluded the Republicans were too worried about the national
Mhm.
politics and not looking in their backyard. And you're basically, this is now two generations
Yep.
flip, where the Democrats have become, it's the presidency or bust party.
And like you can't just win at the top and expect everything else to follow. Trickle down politics,
Mm.
much like a trickle down economics, does not work. And we can't
Mm.
count on that. One of the things that I love about what we do is we work in all 50 states. We've elected candidates in 49. I'm just missing Idaho, and I'm going to win a race there eventually. I get pushback on this all the time of like, why are you wasting resources in a red state?
Yeah, wasting resources. I hear that a lot
It's
too.
not a limited resource. The money in politics, for better or for worse, keeps going up and up and up, where there will always be, unfortunately, more money to spend in this work. It is not a waste of a resource to try and keep white nationalists from running Idaho, as an example. I think that's a good
Right,
thing, both because it is good for Idaho, but also because we have seen over and over and over again what happens in these red states does not stay in these red states. And Republicans, sure as shit, are spending a ton of money to try and flip over blue states.
right. No, it is. It's the it. Look at just, I always look at national politics as, Donald Trump goes out of his way to campaign in the
Mhm.
Bronx, versus I didn't see Kamala Harris going out of her way to campaign in Idaho, right? But I did see Barack Obama
Yeah.
do that,
I think
and I know people sit there and laugh at it, and it's like, here's the thing: you may not even win a vote, another extra voter in Idaho, but somebody in rural Virginia might say, "Oh, I see he might not ignore my issues if
Mhm.
he cares about their
That's
issues."
right. And, like, I think about how many candidates we've worked with over the years who have never who are the first or only Democrat to run in their district, sometimes
Mhm.
ever, or for decades. Like, think about all the voters in that place who have never met a Democrat running for office before, who've never had the opportunity
Right.
to vote for a Democratic candidate.
Well, this to me is the brand issue. I mean, it is, and let me ask you, and let's close out on this topic, which is, you obviously believe that Democrats have to improve their
Mhm.
brand. You can't, you're not you're not ready to say, I'm going to go with the forward party and dump the Democrats, right? Like, and I think some people are thinking about it. Do you have to replace? Is the brand so broken that it's too toxic? Like what could be like what happened to the Israel Labor
Mhm.
Party. Um, what would you be doing if you could wave a magic wand at the DNC right now to do some brand improvement?
I wouldn't do it from the DNC. I think is the key here. But I think what we are doing now, which is getting tens of thousands of people to run for office, like, if you wanna change the Democratic Party, change the people who are out in front as Democrats. Yeah,
Representing the
like,
party.
for
Right.
the last 4 years, the number 1 Democratic communicator was President Joe Biden, who was not the most
Not
effective
a com-
communicator.
not a communicate,
Not a
not a
communicator.
communicator. Right. I mean, that was
That was
the
the
issue.
issue. So, yeah, I don't blame people when they think this party is old and out of touch and doesn't care about me because they didn't hear from someone for most of the last 4 years.
By the way, the other two spokespeople were Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who were basically the same
Not
generation.
great.